Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita
Bhaktivedanta Jana Jana Salaka Chaksurundratam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manubhistam Jagdam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Gatamaya Dati Samsanandiyam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Adavaradamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Dhirupam Sagrata Sagrata Vidantam Devam Sagaitam Savadam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Tiraya Krishna Padam Sagna Lalita Shiva Shakanaramsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopisha Gopija Gandha Radhakanta Namostate Tata Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vishavana Sutta Devi Pranamani Haripe Panchakalpa Taruvasha Kripa Shambhu Evacha Ritanam Bhavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
It works. It's perfect.
Everyone coming? I think we're a little late as always. So what we'll do, we'll talk a little bit about this principle. What is the exact theme again? No, there's something else. Yeah. Avashyapnakar Bhuje Ekehe Kulunamani. So here, Prakriti Kriyamanani Guna Karmani Sarvasya Ahankara Vimudagma Prataham. The bewildered spirit soul under the influence of the three modes of material nature thinks himself to be the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by nature. So this karta, of course, means the doer. So this actual principle of who is the doer is very important because everyone's doing something, isn't it? We're all doing something. And we're all basically functioning according to certain principles. These principles, these conditions, as we call them, we're, if you say, functioning under certain conditions. We're all functioning under certain conditions. And these conditions are something which are actually separate from us. You see, this point has to be understood. That the conditions of material nature are actually something separate from us. So one has to determine what is the self. Without self-determination, then there's no understanding of what is going on. Self-determination. So when you talk about the principle of self, the natural inclination is to say the body. Because there is an affiliation with the body, there's an association with the body. But the association with the body has to be studied very carefully because the association with the body is called asat. Asat means that, as Krishna says, that there is this constant, what do you call it? Eoshmin yutadahi kumaram yoganam jara. That the conditions of the body are transitory. They're constantly changing. At every moment, there are new cells coming, old cells going. There is a constant chemical interaction going on, which is basically something coming in, staying for some time, and going out. So the chemical changes in the body are constantly going on. And we find that in the body, the mind is constantly changing. The mind in the morning is different. A few hours later, noontime is different. If you even think for some time, you'll find your mind will change every second. Actually, there's no permanence. There's no permanence of the mind. There's no fixed up idea. That's why you find, even in education, you're constantly adding something, isn't it? Constantly you need to keep adding. Why do you need to keep adding? Have you ever thought about that? Your whole life you're adding, isn't it? You're always adding something. Because you need to constantly keep adding something. Why? Because there's a deficiency. There's an inadequacy. So the body also needs constant support. Because the body itself is a very delicate combination of material molecules, chemicals, and all of those chemicals need constant refurbishment. Is it the word refurbishment? You could say that refurbishment. Huh? Yeah, replenishment. They constantly need replenishment. If you don't eat food, you can't survive. If you don't drink certain liquids, if you don't get enough sleep, if you sleep too little, you sleep too much. One who eats too much, eats too little. So if you study, you'll find that you're constantly being forced into a situation of dependency. Because you cannot go either too much or too little. You have to find balance. Balancing the relationship between the body and nature. A certain amount of sleep is needed, isn't it? Everybody has to have a certain amount of sleep. You may say, I'll stop sleeping. Now and I'll stop sleeping. But who can do it? Or you may say, from now on I'll stop eating. Or even better, you can say, from now on I'll stop going to the toilet. I've decided I don't want these type of activities anymore. So, Krishna explains in the Bhagavad-Gita that the body is a machine. Here also it is being actually pointing out that, Kartaham itamanyate, which are actually carried out. The functioning of the body, the psychological, physical functioning of the body is all carried out by different forces of material nature, different powers of material nature. So, if we understand that, as I said, prakriti kriyamanani, that all the things have been done by nature, then we have to understand nature itself. We have to study nature. What is nature? So therefore, prakriti, in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, Arjuna is asking Krishna. Let's just quickly go to the 13th chapter. And we'll find that Arjuna is asking Krishna to please explain to him what is the nature of prakriti and purusha. What is the relationship between prakriti and purusha? Because purusha, of course, means enjoyer, and prakriti means that which is enjoyed. You see, these two things are there. The desire to enjoy, and you have that which is enjoyed. So, if you analyze, you'll find that there are what we call, first of all, there is kshetra gyan. Kshetra gyan. Kshetra means the field of activity. So, field of activity, and kshetra gyan means the knower of the field. You see? So basically, your body is a field of activity. You have certain activities which are carried out by this body. And there's the knower of the field. So, Krishna says, now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted and what its changes are, whence it is produced and who the knower of the field of activity is and what its influences are. The knowledge of the field of activities and the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings, especially in the Vedanta Sutra, and is presented with all reasoning as to cause and effect. So this is the principle of knowledge, to understand cause and effect. So we can understand that the relationship between the knower and phenomena, if you understand that there's three things basically. There's the knower, there's the instruments for knowing, and there's the object of knowledge, isn't it? In every single thing, these three things come into existence. The knower, the instruments for knowing, and the object of knowledge. That object of knowledge is basically the most important thing to understand, because this is what we call Vishaya and Ashraya. Vishaya and Ashraya. Vishaya means one who takes shelter. One who takes shelter. Now, every body is taking shelter. We're taking shelter. What are we taking as shelter? We're taking shelter in various types of knowledge. If you understand, what is your relationship with matter? You have a relationship with matter because you are experiencing matter. That's why you have a relationship with matter. If you were experiencing something else, you'd have a relationship with that, isn't it? You understand that point? The reason you have a relationship with matter is because you're experiencing matter. Now, what we must understand is that we are experiencing matter, that matter itself, what type of experience is that? What type of experience? Is it a good experience? Is it a bad experience? Or is it a mediocre experience? Huh? So you have to think, because your relationship with anything is through what? It's through experience. And experience comes through what? Senses, isn't it? So basically, according to the power of your senses, therefore you have in a relationship. You have a certain type of relationship. That's why, as Krishna said, as it's saying here, prakriti kriyamani, according to your nature, you have a relationship. If you have a certain type of body, you have a certain type of relationship. So Prabhupada says, you never see a crow becoming a swan. Isn't it? Suddenly you won't see a crow behaving like a swan. If you put a crow in a beautiful lake, you look for some garbage. If you put a swan in a garbage heap, you look for a lake. See? So everyone has association according to their body. That body is basically a product of matter. So, therefore, on account of the relationship between the body and nature, therefore there's a certain type of existence, purely. The existence that you have in your body is according to your body's relationship with matter, in your relationship with nature. So therefore, sometimes you're happy. Why? Because the conditions are better. You see? Sometimes when the conditions are better, you say, oh, I'm happy today. It's sunny today. I've got money today. I'm in love today. And sometimes you feel, sometimes you say, I'm miserable today. I hate these people. I hate that person. I feel absolutely horrible. So, these two types of experiences, what we call sukha dukkha. Sukha means when there is happiness, ananda. Of course, when there's pleasure, then we don't question so much our existence. When the experience is good, we think that life is okay. We think that life is tolerable. It's quite nice. It's not so bad. Don't be too pessimistic. Things get better in the future. Things will improve. Technology is moving on now. They say they'll even get rid of wrinkling and old age and disease. After all, they did go to the moon, didn't they? So we should all be happy. So therefore, we find that what is the general principle? The general principle of faith. Because after all knowledge is based on a certain type of faith, isn't it? In other words, why do you think you're this body? Have you ever thought about that? Why do you think you're this body? There's nothing about your body which is attractive. If you actually put it all on a table, which you can do if you go to medical school, isn't it? You can take all the little bits and put them on tables, put little what do you call labels on them. Which of those bits are so good that you're willing to work your whole life to maintain? Is it the little giblets? Or is it the tumps? Or is it all those miles of veins that run around all over the place? Or is it that little mushy stuff called the brain? Which is it that's so wonderful that you're totally obsessed with? And which is very, very important to your happiness? Come on, this is called super-analysis of the human body. So therefore, when you dissect the body, even mentally, you find that actually it's a combination of certain actual, mechanisms, isn't it? There's mechanisms. The body has different types of systems. The circular system, the digestive system. There's different types of, basically mechanical systems which are operating. But because they're working very finely and very wonderful, therefore we kind of accept them to be real. When things are very, beyond our conception, we tend to have a certain amount of faith in them. We have this faith in the body. The body, because why? Because the body is capable of giving superior experience. You see? It's capable of giving some sort of superior experience. So we give it a certain amount of superiority. But in actuality, the body itself is extremely inferior. It's very inferior. It's not inferior because of its mechanization, but it's inferior because it does not really exist. And the experiences we get through the body are very limited. They're extremely limited. And because they're limited, they are incapable of satisfying the self. They cannot actually give satisfaction to the self. The reason there's no material experience that gives satisfaction to the self is because the self is not material. See? You can give satisfaction to the mind dependent upon what exactly you, as what you call the false ego, feel that the mind should have. Like some people get very excited about train spotting. Some people get very excited about collecting stamps. Some people get very excited about going to different types of girls. Some people get very excited about driving cars and having lots of money. Some people get very excited about watching television, EastEnders, Coronation Street. Some people get very excited about being pretty and looking in the mirror all day. You see? So these are all different types of stimuli to the mind. We stimulate the mind. Now, of course, the stimulation of the mind, generally you find, is a very fleeting pleasure. Fleeting pleasure. For instance, you have a good cigarette. People see you smoke. And they're having some pleasure. Then later on, again, they're lighting another one. Again, they're looking for that little bit of pleasure. So Prahlad Maharaj says there's this principle of chewing on the chew. You see? The principle of matter is that it has both a limited and transitory nature. Now, when something is transitory, that means that even though it gives pleasure, the pleasure is happening in such a flickering way that you have to catch it again. You have to go looking for it again. You see? It's if you notice the nature of material pleasure is that people have to keep doing the same thing over again. There is never a time when someone will say, I am now completely satisfied with the rest of my life. You can't. There is no experience in this material world which is actually satisfying to the self. There are experiences which give stimuli to the senses. They give stimuli to the mind, just like if you become intoxicated, if you engage in many different types of stimulation, you'll find. But you'll find that what is it doing in reality? It's agitating you. Agitating you. There's a difference between satisfaction and agitation. Agitation means that there's, if you like, an awakening something deeper. Most of the experiences in the material world, because they're a reflection of actual real pleasure. They're not real pleasure, they're a reflection. For instance, this principle of shadow, we should understand. The experiences of the material world are a shadow of the reality. Shadow of the reality. So, on account of their shadow feature, they are giving an indication, if you like, of something. It's very hard to explain if you can try and understand it. For instance, if you look at the experience of love. Now in the material world, many of us have loved or been loved. At least some of us have loved. We've either loved or been loved. But you'll find it's not there after a period of time. The love itself is existing under certain conditions, isn't it? Whenever there is some love, for instance, the beautiful romances of marriage, when people get married, ooh, you're such a lovey-dovey. And they love each other, and they're cuddling each other, and kissing each other. And then gradually, as time goes on, the kisses get less, the cuddling gets less, the relationship gets less. More and more contempt comes in. They get fed up with each other. They become disgusted with each other. Sometimes to the point where they start hitting each other. It usually starts off with a bit of arguing, isn't it? They start arguing with each other. Then you find that what you find is what is deterioration. So Krishna is described in the Bhagavad-Gita also, that in the beginning, material pleasure and the mode of passion, it appears very sweet. Sweet. That sweetness is there. That sweetness. Huh? The body is a good example of that. It starts off very sweet. When it's young, vibrant, we've got this nice body and full of hope and aspirations. And gradually, as time, this very amazing feature of time, moves it along, then everything starts to become contemptible. You start to become disgusted. The very body you have will become in old days disgusted. Like the Krishna said, yoganam jara, meaning that the body as it gradually goes into old age, then we gradually actually feel definitely that our relationship with that body is becoming more and more dissatisfied. So in the beginning, in the material thing, it appears to be very sweet. There appears to be a very sweetness there. That sweetness gradually turns to poison. The pleasures of the material world will always end up in distress. Guaranteed. If you want to put a guarantee on anything, you can guarantee that anything that begins nice will end distressful. No matter what the reason is, it doesn't matter what the reason is. But the very functioning of matter is that nature itself is there to cheat the living entity. The living entity, the mind, is the conductor of the material world, and the mind's business is with the aid of the senses. You see, the mind, if you like, the mind is the juror, the head of the jury. The senses there are like the jury. Now, what they're doing basically is through the agency of the senses, the mind is actually conducting this transitory relationship with the material world. And the soul stands convicted. The soul actually, if you like, it stands convicted. So we become convicted on account of our simple activities in the material world. And what is that is because we are actually conducting our activities through the inferiority of this material body. We are conducting our activities through the inferiority of the material body, and therefore the activities themselves are inferior. You see? You cannot get a superior result from an inferior instrument, isn't it? What are you doing in medical science? You're always trying to get a perfect instrument, isn't it? If you don't have a better instrument, you can't get a better result. Therefore, all the time, scientists are trying to come up with better instruments, isn't it? Now, why do they need to get better instruments? Because they need a better experience of the thing. Whether it's looking at the what do you call, subatomic, or looking at the macrocosmic, what do you call it, the microcosmic or the macrocosmic. You always need more and more better instruments, isn't it? Why? Because we all know, it's clear, that the actual senses themselves are totally inadequate. So life itself is a what do you call, a life of inexperience, a life of inadequacy, totally inadequate experience. Why? Because we have inadequate knowledge. This is very nicely explained, of course, in that principle that the material world itself is perfect. It's perfect because it comes from the all-perfect, Purnam. Therefore, everything is perfect. The personality of God is perfect and complete. And because He is perfect and complete, all emanations that come from Him, they're also completely perfect as individual complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Even though so many complete units emanate from Him, He remains in complete balance. So Prabhupada explains in that purport that everything that comes from Krishna is perfect. Now, one may say, well, I've noticed in the material world imperfection. Imperfection. Prabhupada said, no, there is no imperfection. There is only imperfect knowledge of the complete arrangement of the complete. You see, there's incomplete knowledge of the complete. But everything is complete. Now, when we try and understand, and this is actually very important, that we know there's something superior going on. When we see the universe, we see the planets, we see how everything is working. We know there's something superior going on. Prabhupada said that is proof. That is proof of God. God means superior. God means superior. So if you say, just like we say, when Prabhupada met the, what is that guy, Professor Koski in Russia, he said, you are accepting Lenin, I am accepting Krishna. We're both accepting some authority. You may say your communism is not believing in a God, but Lenin is your God. You see, Lenin is your God. Because you're accepting him as something superior. So what is God? God is really just something superior. Now, how superior, nobody knows. Nobody knows how superior God is. But he's better than Lenin. Okay. We can say he's better than Lenin. But how superior? So then all you have really is religion is just an acceptance of something superior. And everyone's doing that. Everyone's accepting something superior. Because on account of our situation, we always have to surrender to something. Because our instruments are defective. And because our instruments are defective, our knowledge is defective, therefore we must take shelter. If our knowledge was perfect, there would be no question of taking shelter in anything. Because we would not need to. If our happiness was perfect, there would be no need to take shelter in anything. Because we wouldn't need to. You understand? Why do we take shelter in booze? Because we're unhappy. Why do we take shelter with women? Because we're unhappy. Why do we take shelter with different types of stimuli? Because we're unhappy. You understand? We don't take shelter because that thing is needed to take shelter. Everyone is taking shelter of something because of inadequacy. We are dependent. We are dependent on that thing to give us some sort of superior experience. So that superior experience is the thing that we're hankering after. Not the drink, not the women, not the booze, not the cinema, not Albert Schwarzenegger or whatever his name is. No, we want to see something superior. That's why you find most movies are people doing superior things, isn't it? This guy beats up 500 guys with one fist while he's having a drink of beer. And everyone sits there going, So everything we look at towards, it's on account of some superior. We are moving towards something superior. Therefore, in actuality, all that you're doing really is, when you talk about higher superiority, it is a question that after a certain stage of experience, you have to surrender. You have to surrender. You have to take shelter of something for experience. Now, you can go even one step even more further than that. We take shelter of our mind because it's superior to the dull senses. Krishna says in the Bhagavad-Gita, higher than the senses is the mind. Why do you take shelter in your mind? You have more confidence in your mind. You see, whenever you talk about engaging in activities, you have to, bounce it off the mind, isn't it? You have to actually make sure anything which you are going to accept or reject has to be passed through the mind. And then the mind will then verify it with the other senses. You understand? Just like now I'm drinking this drink. So my mind is looking at it. It looks a bit funny. But anyway, my tongue is saying it's okay. Okay, my tongue is saying it's okay, so therefore I drink it. If my tongue doesn't like it, I spit it out. I throw it away. You see? So therefore, the mind has as its instruments the senses for verifying. The senses are an extension of the mind. They verify by experience. You see, by experience. So therefore, we are totally and utterly dependent upon the experience of this world. But none of us can say that that experience is adequate. And as I was saying, the reason is that we don't understand the arrangement. You see, the complete arrangement. That there is a perfect arrangement in matter. Matter is there to give us an inferior experience. You see, it was created like that. It's not coincidental that most of the experiences you get in this world are inadequate to your happiness. There's no one happy in this room. There's no one happy in this town. There's no one happy in this country. There's no one happy in the planet. There's nobody happy if you go in the ocean, if you go in the sky, if you even search in the trees and everywhere, you will not find one single creature that's happy. Isn't that amazing? Now, if you study it further, you'll find that every single animal, insect, bird, human, fish is looking for happiness. That's also amazing. Because in actuality, here we're dealing with fundamental principles. That the principle of consciousness is towards happiness. And yet, matter itself is incapable of giving any genuine experience of happiness. Now, you cannot possibly say that that's accidental. It doesn't make sense at all, because it's natural to be happy, and matter itself doesn't make you happy. So therefore, we have to bring in a higher factor. So here Krishna is explaining that knowledge of the field of activities and the knower activities is ascribed by various sages in various Vedic writings, especially Vedanta Sutra, and is presented with all reasoning as to cause and effect. You see? Now we get into the point that we're stuck in the effect, but we don't understand the cause. On account of our being too absorbed in the effect, on account of our being too absorbed in that which is small, we have lost sight of that which is great. We have lost sight of that which is great. Because we don't understand that the cause and effect is coming from superior, higher principle. We understand it in everything material. Everything material we know needs ordination or coordination to bring about a superior thing. For instance, your happiness absorbs you 24 hours a day. You don't leave it to chance. Why? Because it requires your full concentration of your mind and intelligence in order to bring about some organized form of activity. In any sphere, you need concentrated intelligence to bring about any organized kind of form of existence. That is the example between animals and humans. Humans are the only ones endowed with superior consciousness who can actually organize their lives. Animals do not organize themselves. They have their own natural organized activities, but all of them are, if you like, completely and utterly the manifestation of material condition. The human being is the only one who can at least try to go above conditions. You see? To go above conditions. The reason is, why do we want to go above conditions? Because the conditions themselves are not satisfying. They're not adequate. They're not substantial. And therefore, we are always trying to make adjustments. The human being is the greatest adjuster in this world. There's no one else who makes adjustments like the human being. The actual facilities of the material world are not better for humans than animals. Prabhupada says when an animal has sex, he has just the same experience as you, even better. It's not that you have such a superior experience. When an animal eats, he gets just as happy as you do. Some animals go into complete ecstasy when they eat. They're not, so they're eating, they're sleeping, and their family they're just attached to their family. You think you're attached to your mom and dad, to your brothers and sisters, they're just as attached. You see? So all of those things which you're experiencing through the body, the animal is also experiencing through the body. The difference is that the animal cannot analyze his situation. So here Krishna is saying that the 5 great elements, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses, the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms and convictions, all of these are considered in summary to be the field of activities and its interreactions. So this is where human life begins. Human life begins with the power of analysis, the power to analyze, which simply means that we have superior intelligence. Because unless you have intelligence, you can't analyze, isn't it? You can't analyze without intelligence. So therefore, this analytical study of nature means that one can begin to understand the relationship between the 5 gross elements. In other words, the 5 gross elements, the mind, the ego. And as it says here, the unmanifested, the 10 senses, the mind, the 5 sense objects. So this interaction between senses and sense objects brings about what? Desire, hatred, happiness, and distress. Desire, hatred, happiness, and distress. These are what is called the interreactions, isn't it? There is what we call this bhogityaga, which is attraction and repulsion. Within the scope of material experience, there is always some attraction and some repulsion. There was a good example of that. Prabhupada was driving one time with devotees, and one man had got driven over by a lorry. They were squashed all over the floor. So then everyone was disgusted. Ooh. And they turned to Prabhupada and said, "Ooh, Prabhupada, look at this." Prabhupada was just standing on the feet. And then Prabhupada said, "Why are you disgusted?" And he said, "Oh, Prabhupada, his brains were squashed. He was looking horrible." Prabhupada said, "But you are the same. You are the same." So in other words, the thing becomes repulsive. But at the same time, the very same thing is the most attractive thing in the world. People have died for a woman or for a man. The attraction between man and woman is so strong. But if you see the same woman squashed by a 30-ton lorry on the M1, it wouldn't stimulate you at all. As a matter of fact, you'd probably run into the bushes and vomit. Really? So, therefore, this, what we call desire and hatred. You see? The desire is there. Now, why is the desire there when the woman's nicely packaged? And it's disgusting when they're splattered all over the floor. Huh? Why? Same things are there. But you see, it's not attractive to the mind. So the basic principle is, when we see a beautiful woman in a body, we have all sorts of hopes and aspirations and desires and dreams. We will be able to enjoy like this and that. Some nice little kitty witties that come along. We have a nice house and we wander around the garden. But then when they're squashed all over the floor, what do you do then? You can't think, well, I'll put it together again. And we'll patch it all up a bit. They do a lot of cosmetic surgery these days. I'll stick it in and we'll repackage it all. No. So therefore, the repulsion is because there is no more sense gratification. You see? So therefore, the principle of what we call desire and hatred is based upon the principle of what we call anticipated psychology, the anticipation of happiness. That I will get my happiness from this thing. Just like your car. When you get your nice new car, you're driving down the road, you feel great. I'm going to be able to do this now, do that. Suddenly you're crying, you're out there punching a guy because he didn't look where he's going. You're in total distress. For a week or 2 weeks you can't even talk to anyone. You're such distress. So the same thing which was your object of pleasure now becomes your object of, isn't it? See? All because of a little change. The little change is, those horrible little things. A little change is, take it outside and listen. A little change is that your sense gratification has been interrupted. You see, so Krishna says from attachment comes lust. You see, this lust is very important to study. This lust means the hope or the anticipated happiness that you're going to get from something. And then from attachment comes lust. From lust comes frustration. This is the point. The whole material world is created to frustrate you. From frustration comes anger. Have you ever noticed when you're trying to fix the simplest little thing and it doesn't work, you gradually end up, you're smashing it, you're shouting at it, you're screaming at it, because it doesn't cooperate with you. You see, matter doesn't cooperate with you. That is the point. Everybody needs to have, for their own sense gratification, they need cooperation. And matter does not cooperate. You cooperate with matter. That is the point of this verse. Prakriti kriyamanani. You see? Prakriti is the doer. You're the cooperator. You're not the doer. You're the cooperator. You cooperate. You see? You cooperate. So therefore, in every principle of life, you are cooperating with superior authority. Now all Krishna consciousness is saying, you cooperate with the most superior. That's all. It's not anything different from materialism. Spiritual life is just the same activity. You eat for Krishna, you sleep for Krishna, you go out, you work for Krishna. You see? You're also doing everything. The devotee is doing the same thing as everyone else. It's not that suddenly our hair goes different colors and we start growing wings and flying around the room. No, we're doing the same things, but all we're doing is we're doing it for the superior thing. You see? That's all. So Krishna consciousness is very simple. The first thing you must accept is the superior principle. That Krishna Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. You must accept, first of all, that the highest principle is Satchidananda. Not Asat, Achit, and Nirnana. You see, in the material world, the thing is reflected. That which is Sat becomes Asat. That which is Ananda becomes Nirnana. Nirnana means opposite. So we're living in a world of opposites. The opposite, everything here is opposite to your well-being. Everything here is opposite to your happiness. It may appear to have a semblance of these things, but it's not. It's the reflected shadow in darkness. So therefore, all that Krishna consciousness is to search out the superior. The superior means, as it says here, that humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, and self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of the false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, non-attachment to children, wife, home, and the rest, and even-mindedness. This is very important. Even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant experiences. You see? Why should you be even-minded? Because you understand. You see? The reasons the materialist becomes angry is because he doesn't understand. A devotee accepts everything as Krishna's blessing. If the devotee's legs fall off, he goes, Haribo! Jai Prabhu! He doesn't mind. So what? I lost a leg and he loses the other leg. Oh, Haribo! I lost the leg. He doesn't mind. Whatever Krishna wants. You want to take my legs? Take them Krishna. You want to destroy me? You destroy me. You want to make me a prince? Make me a prince. That is yours. You see? You have to understand, even-mindedness in pleasant and unpleasant experiences. Constant and unalloyed devotion to me. Resorting to solitary places, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge. In other words, all of these are reality. Everything else, Krishna says, is illusion. Everything else, he says, and what is contrary to this is ignorance. So this verse is very important to make you understand that the superior experience is humility, not pride. You see, they're all opposites. In the material world, to be proud, to be the big man, to be the big woman, to be the big intelligent person, to be the rich person, to be the most famous person, they're considered something gained, that you've gained something. That's why, especially in families, look son, you have to understand, you need a good education, you need to get a good job, you need to get on in the world. People will respect you, you'll have a good income, you'll find a nice wife, you'll have friends who admire you because you've got money and you've got prestige. People will respect you because you're very intelligent. You'll have a good life, son, like me. And like your granddad and his granddad. We've had a great lineage, our family. All of our family are proud to be called Patel. We're proud of it. Because son, the Patels have shown themselves. Or you've got the Englishman saying, all of our family, the Johnsons and the Smiths. So Prabhupada said the man is very enthusiastic to give his son. To give his son what? What did he gain? What did he gain that he should give to his son? You see? The point is that the gain is not superior. So this is superior. Opposite thing. Instead of pride, one should be very humble. pridelessness, non-violence. You see, devotee is non-violent, because why should he be violent? There's no need to be violent. He accepts everything as Krishna's message. There's no need to be violent. If Krishna asks him to fight, like Arjuna, then he'll fight. But not otherwise. For his own personal self-reason. Simplicity. One should be very simple, because the material world is very complicated. And the complication of this material world is made worse by you. You make it worse. All of the complicated life is created by humans. Animals do not complicate their life. Isn't it? You look at animals' life, there's nothing complicated about it. Humans, they have billions of different complicated things going on. You see? If you look at so-called advancement of technology, it just made everything so complicated. Everything. All of these machines they're making, every year they get more and more and more and more complicated. Isn't it? And that's called advancement. So one should make life very simple. So we see that actually, if you do all the opposite things in life, you always come a lot nearer to doing the right thing. When you talk about what the mind wants, you should go against the mind. Become an enemy of the mind. The mind is your enemy, now you become its enemy. Its enemy means that you no longer take advice from the mind, because the mind is the cheater. It is giving bad counsel. Always giving you bad counsel. Why? Because the mind is the conductor. It is the actual conduction of the modes of material nature. The sitting places of this lust, Krishna says, is the mind. In the mind, there are so many stupid things going on which have kept us here for millions and millions of births. So now, spiritual life means to declare war on the mind. To declare war on the mind. You have to declare war on it. No more listening to the mind. Therefore it says, approaching a bona fide spiritual master. Talviri paripatena, paripashena, sevara. Paripashena, sevara. These two things are very important. Paripatena. Paripatena means to become like a blackboard for the spiritual master. In other words, you get rid of the dirty things in the mind. Chaitanya Marjana, Mahavagna. You have to get rid of the dirty things. What are the dirty things? They are the simple misconceptions of the mind. That I am this body, that I am Indian, that I am English, that I am this, that I am very good looking, that this is my that, this is that. These are all dirty things in the mind. You see, these dirty things must be removed by cleansing. Cleansing of the mind means to make paripashena sevaya. One must render service. In one approach to bona fide spiritual master, render service unto him, inquire submissively from him. So this submitting to the spiritual master, isn't it? Your professor is going to get you a good income, a good living, a good future. You're going to get a good job if you listen. You're going to move up the ladder of material success. And if you listen to the spiritual master, you'll end up being one of those brahmacharis, living in those cold ashrams, with all those characters who you don't know, getting up at 3:30 in the morning, having to chant Hare Krishna. So therefore most people, they don't want to go that way. They want to go the other way. So anyway, these are very important things. So, what time is it now? I think we have to get out of here. What time is it? 9:35? I thought it was now to get up? Huh? Is it? So, therefore, as Krishna says, Tadvari paripatena, paripashena sevaya, that one has to come to me. Krishna says, come to me, do not fear. As you surrender unto me, I will reward accordingly. So here, we may ask ourselves, how do we surrender to Krishna? How do we surrender to Krishna? So this is given, I was listening to a nice thing in the third chapter. Of course, this may be an extreme example, but it's also a good example. And that is that here, Krishna is explaining to Arjuna. He says, bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although their duties are inferior, due to the performer's lack of knowledge. You see, Krishna is pointing out, yes, their activities are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. Therefore, Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with mind intent on me, and without desire for gain and free from egotism and lethargy, fight. So the point is that Krishna is giving very clear instructions. Prabhupada says in the purport that here, the Supreme Lord The Supreme Lord is the soul of all souls. Therefore, one who depends solely and wholly on the Supreme Soul, without personal consideration, or in other words, one who is fully Krishna conscious, is called Adhyatmika Chetasa. The Rashi means that one has to act on the order of the Master. You see, one has to act on the order of the Master, because at the moment you are acting under the order of the Master. You are acting under orders 24 hours a day. That is the meaning of Prakriti Kriyamana. You are acting under the order of the Master. Just like everyone in this room is blinking. Does anyone stop blinking? No. Because you're blinking because your body tells you to blink. Everything your body tells you to do, you are doing. Therefore, your body is your master. That is the meaning of Godasa, means servant of the senses. You are serving your senses. You are serving your mind 24 hours a day. So therefore, here one has to accept the order of master. So now we're making Krishna a master. And it says that, nor should one ever expect fruitive results. The cashier may count millions of dollars for his employer, but he does not claim a cent for himself. Similarly, one has to realize that nothing in the world belongs to any individual person. Everything, animate and inanimate within this universe, is owned and controlled by the Lord. One should therefore only accept those things which are set aside as his quota. One should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So this principle is that one should not become, attached to fruitive results, because nothing belongs to us. Just as one counts millions of dollars for his employer, but he does not claim even a cent for himself. Similarly, one has to realize that nothing in the world belongs to any individual person, but that everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. So that is the real purpose of Mai, unto me. You see, when Krishna says unto me, what is the meaning of unto me? Krishna is simply asking that you acknowledge that everything belongs to Krishna. You see, because it's not a question of sentiment, it's a question of philosophical truth. You did not create one peanut in this world. You did not create one single thing in this world. You are simply using things. Now, for you to use something means that someone has to have put it there. So people say nature put it there. Okay? That's very nice. But where did nature come from? That is the point. Where did nature come from? In other words, there's a complex relationship between you and nature, and it all happened accidentally. It just so happens that your body requires billions of different combinations of matter to exist. And yet all of those combinations were accidental. You see? Just like, you are requiring your body is a total dependent unit on the supreme arrangement of matter. You are totally dependent on nature. But when you talk about nature, then you have to understand that behind nature, because nature means energy, behind all energy is energetic. Therefore we have to understand what is the cause of nature. What is the cause of nature? Because nature is working on the fundamental laws. For nature to work on the laws means there must be a lawmaker. Somebody made the laws. All the laws in this world are made by someone. There's no laws which are not conducted by some superior intelligence. And therefore one has to realize. So that is the real purpose of Maya unto me. And when one acts in such Krishna consciousness, certainly does not claim proprietorship over anything. This consciousness is called nirmana, or nothing is mine. And if there is any reluctance to execute such a stern order, which is without consideration of so-called kinsmen of the bodily relationship, that reluctance should be thrown off. This is very strong language. In this way, one may become what is called vigata vara. Vigata vara means without feverish mentality. Feverish mentality. You see, when you actually realize that you are not the proprietor, and when you acknowledge that the energy is meant for the service of the energetic, in other words, that Krishna is the, as I said, Bhuktaram Yagna Tapasyam Savalokam, that He is the real enjoyer. He is the Yagna Tapasyam. He is the enjoyer of all your sacrifices, of all your penances, of all your austerities. That He is the real, Suridamsar, that He is the real friend of the living entity. In this way, one becomes free from feverish mentality. Feverish mentality goes. Then, when you become, just like when you're in hospital and you have a very high fever, the first thing you must do is bring the fever down, isn't it? So the first thing you must do in spiritual life is bring your materialism down. Bring the fever down. Don't try to increase the fever. So many people, unfortunately, they have a fever of materialism. They're suffering from materialism, and then they go to God and ask Him for more stuff. You see? This is the trick of Maya. In other words, I'm suffering because of my association with the material world. Then when I go to God, God help me in this material world. The example is like there was a man, he was pulling this barge along the canal, and on the side of the canal, a lot of big stones and thorns were cutting his feet. So then he prayed to God very fervently, my dear Lord, please come. So the Lord came, and he asked him, what can I do for you? You have prayed for me to come. He said, oh, can you please put nice cushions on the side of this canal, so that when I walk on these cushions, I will not have so much pain in my feet. So that is the same principle of most spiritual idea, is to make the world better. Make the world better. We want to have better. So we pray to God, my dear God, give me my daily bread. As if God has become bigger. So we need some bread in our belly, so let God supply. So this point is there, that one should not in any way increase this fever. Everyone according to his quality and position has a type of work to discharge, and all such duties may be discharged in Krishna consciousness as described above. That will lead one on the path of liberation. Okay, I think we'll finish there. Is time for any quick question? Is it? You finished there?
Earlier on you were saying that the activities living being things are carried by himself. In fact, they're carried out by nature. Now, the point I understand is that the living being is the living force. Nature is a nature, but it is inferior to the spirit soul. So how can it...
I think I know the point you're trying to make.
Yeah.
If the soul is superior, then nature itself is not superior to the soul. Huh? But you see, the soul, nature itself, as Krishna said, prakriti kriyamanani. Prakriti kriyamanani. Deviye sigunamayi. Deviye sigunamayi. Devi Esa Gunamayi, Krishna says this material energy is Devi. The word Devi means divine. So Krishna says this divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, is duratma, very difficult to overcome, impossible to overcome, because you see, material energy is conducted under the order of Krishna. So therefore, in one sense, you can say it's inferior, but it's not. It's superior. It's superior. But it's true, the functioning is inferior. Matter itself is creating an inferior experience on account of the mercy of Krishna. Krishna has put you into an inferior environment so that you will awaken your consciousness to go back to home, back to God. So in one sense, the experience of the material world may be considered to be inferior, but in reality, that experience is to bring you to a superior consciousness. So it's a superior goal. The goal is superior. Just like if a child is putting its hand in the fire, and the mother slaps the child. It seems that that's a very negative thing to do. But actually the goal of slapping the child is to stop it burning its arm off or scarring itself for life. So in one sense you can see that the inferior thing is for a superior purpose. In that sense. So similarly, although material energy is inferior by all accounts, but at the same time it is superior, it's spiritual. Because the whole idea of material energy is to bring you to the point of surrendering to God. Because after Bahunam Jamanam Te Jnanavamam Prapadante, Krishna says after many, many births of experiencing different varieties of life and experiencing different types of knowledge, finally one comes to the conclusion, Vasudeva Samhamiti, Samahatma Sagulaka, that one finally understands that Vasudeva is everything. Nature itself is Vasudeva's energy, Krishna's energy. So it is everything, Krishna is everything. So therefore, in one sense, when you surrender to material nature, you're also surrendering to Krishna, but in ignorance. All that Krishna consciousness is saying, do the same surrender in knowledge. You see? Because it's true. The devotee is also eating, the devotee is sleeping, the devotee is driving cars, the devotee is living in buildings. Devotee is doing all these things. But the only difference is devotee is doing it in Krishna consciousness for the pleasure of Krishna. That's all. So it's not that you stop anything, it's you add something. Negative means to negate. To add something means to add Krishna. So when you add that thing, just like I'm using this microphone to glorify Krishna, so it becomes spirit. This is spiritual. Spiritual, you see. Even though it looks material, it's spiritual. So then it brings about its true function. Because in actuality, everything is Krishna's energy, everything is spiritual. But its function is divine. In the material world. That's why you can't overcome matter. Matter will destroy you every time. You can never, there's no human being who has ever been able to contradict the laws of nature. They call them the laws of physics. But the point is, they're laws. You can call them what you like. Laws means something greater than you. You can't change them. Nobody has been able to change the laws of nature. You can play around with them and kid yourself into, just like Prabhupada says, there are millions of dogs barking, but if I can bark, and you say, oh, how does he know how to bark like that? You see? So that's what these stupid scientists are like. Everything is there already. Huh? There's billions of children being born every minute, but if they create one in the test tube, they're famous. God is not famous. He's created billions and billions of children for the last millions of years. He has no fame. But they do one, they're famous. PhD, Nobel Prize, name of the lights. You see? Cheating. Cheaters and cheating. Everything is there. They're bringing nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. But by making some, playing around with some energy and saying that this is how we have been able to achieve. Just like suppose you produce one human being. But there's been billions of human beings for millions of years. Who gets the credit for that? Nobody. But you produce one human being, you get the credit. But what are you using? You're using things which are already there. Bring something new. Bring something new. Just like that watch. Watch is there. Suppose I dismantle it and reassemble it. What is the achievement? Maybe genius that I reassembled it and you say, oh, that looks just like the one that was there before. Yeah, what? Arti? Okay. Jai Bhagavan, Jai Shri Prabhupada.